everybody, it's the Koala in the Suit, or Shadow Studios 9 Minecraft username Primary Artemis, and I am here in the Tinker Box, which, if you are one of the few old viewers of mine, will remember this place as my redstone playground. And unless you have some sort of reading deficiency or just by principle hate to read YouTube titles, you would know that this is my first lesson on getting started with redstone. Now, this is a crash course, very bare minimum basics of how redstone works, and it's one thing that a lot of people miss and can really end up biting them later when you don't understand the foundations. So if you do understand the foundations, feel free to skip this video and just wait for the following up weeks, as I'll be building logic gates and showing you how to use those logic gates in different scenarios as we go. Okay, so first we'll start with the three components of redstone machines. First, we have the redstone itself. Now, the redstone is literally just a wire, and I'm sure most of you understand that. All it does is send a signal from one place to another. Now, the signal that it sends comes from one of these various input devices. Now, all these input devices do different things. A redstone input continuously gives out a signal, unless it is toggled off, which I will show you later. A pressure plate will give out a redstone signal as long as it's being stood on, and a stone pressure plate can only be activated by an entity like a player or a mob, while a wooden plate can be activated by throwing items onto it, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. We also have the lever, which is a toggleable input. When you flip it down, it will continuously send output until it is again flipped off. A button is a quick input. It goes on for a second and then it comes back off. On, off. Okay, and now we have our outputs, which is what receives a redstone signal. And now you can also have outputs as redstone torches themselves because they can be turned off by signal, but I'll get to that in a second. Our basic outputs are lights, doors, pistons, and dispensers. And now I'll show you what I was talking about when I said throwing items on wooden pressure plates. So if you throw an item down there, it will activate it. You can see the lights came on, the doors opened, that shot something out, and the pistons activated. So I'll just go collect my melon. And everything turns off and it goes exactly back to where it was before. Okay, now time to talk about the redstone wiring a little more. Now, redstone wiring cannot continuously send signals off to infinity. A redstone wire will send a signal for exactly 15 blocks, and you can get a perspective of how far that is, because right here at this little blue wool is where the signal stops and becomes dead. Now, if you want to send a signal more than 15 blocks, you have to put what is called a repeater on it, this little thing here. And repeaters will re-strengthen the signal, but they also have another function. When you hit a repeater, I'll just throw this down here and show you. When you have a repeater, it will also delay the signal. So if I just throw a lever on, now, on the first click, it's pretty much instantaneous. You're not really going to notice much of a lag, but every time you right-click it, the distance gets farther and farther, and it takes longer and longer to send that signal. As you can see now, there's a delay. Now, when you start getting multiple repeaters across multiple things, you can start to get major delays, and sometimes you want delays for certain things, which of course we'll talk about later. Now, redstone doesn't have to be directly connected to the object like such. A redstone signal will emit to every block within one block of where the signal goes. So see, if I turn the signal on, it goes directly into this block, but this block still sends it out to every single one of these lights that is one block away from it. Okay, now to talk about glass. Not every block can send or receive redstone signals, like this block of wool can, or these stones can. So, to show you what I mean, I can send a signal through this wool block using these repeaters. So if I turn this on, the signal goes into the repeater sends it into the wool gets the signal, this redstone's next to the wool, so the wool sends it back out into this repeater to this redstone. Now if you try to do the same exact setup with a piece of glass, the redstone will not travel through glass, and redstone is one of the few blocks in Minecraft that cannot receive redstone signals, which can become very handy, as you'll see later, when you get very, very complex projects and you need to keep signals from jumping certain places. Okay, now to talk about toggling redstone torches. As I mentioned earlier, a redstone torch is always continuously on. That is, until it receives a signal. If you put a signal into it, like so, it will turn the torch off. Now this is called an inverting gate or a NOT gate, depending. And you might be wondering, well, why would I want to turn a redstone torch off? Why wouldn't I just use something like a switch? Well, say you want the default state of something to be on. So you want this piston pushed out with this block so it covers up this hole so people don't know it's there. But you also don't want to have to use a lever. You want something sneaky like a button. So when I click this button, it will invert this, turn all this off, move the piston, and reveal the hole. So click opens it just long enough for your victim to drop down into the pit you created. And that's just the very, very most basic view of the NOT gate. And now I'm going to show you a little something I'm going to caution you about starting out with redstone. And the redstone videos I watched never really explained this to me, so I was highly frustrated when this was happening and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Redstone is very picky in the directions it will send and receive signals. So for instance, we have two blocks going directly into this block. It will, oops, I missed. It will send the signal into the block, turning off this torch. It seems logical, right? Well, if you start making more advanced things and you start getting turns in your signals and stuff, you would think, well, this goes straight into this block and then also sends it here. Well, that's actually not so. If you actually turn the signal on, you'll notice that the torch does not receive the signal from the redstone because of the way you have it curved. So you always want to be careful about that during a redstone project when you're getting started out, because I know getting started off, no one ever told me that, and I was getting very frustrated when things weren't receiving signals, and I had no idea why. Okay, well, I know that this has just been a very, very basic overview of redstone and what it can do, but as with anything, you gotta learn the basics before you can move on to the more advanced stuff. So now that you know the basics, in the upcoming weeks we'll be moving on to things like logic gates and what you can do with those logic gates. And after we get a couple of logic gates down, we'll go ahead and move on to bigger projects like combination locks and programmable locks. So if you're interested in learning redstone, stick tuned for future videos. And for now, this is Primary Artemis, the koala in the suit, saying toodles.